Hey guys, welcome back to the Technobabble podcast. But before we get into this next episode, I just wanted to remind you guys that we're now a part of Patreon. Someone has to pay the bills to help to keep this shit free, and I don't mind taking the money out of my own pocket. But I've got lots of cool shit I want to do, fun content I want to create, and I think you guys will enjoy it. I know I'll enjoy it. And if you like the same kind of shit I do, then I can guarantee you're probably going to enjoy it too. But the bottom line is this. In order for all of that fun stuff to happen and for it to happen quicker and for this podcast and its affiliated content to grow, I'm going to need some help. So if you can part with just a few dollars a month, head on over to patreon.com/Technobabble podcast. Every little bit helps, guys, and there's even some cool rewards. So if you pledge over a certain amount, you'll get some cool kind of things. So check that out over there. Anyway, head over there, check it out. If you can, please help us out. All of your questions will be answered over there, but if they aren't, hit me up whenever. Hit me up on Twitter at the Technobabble, or visit our website, technobabblepodcast.com. There's a contact form there you can reach us at also. And for those of you that can't help out, I understand. It's fine. Just you listening is more than enough. But if you can help out, then that's great. You're helping support something that means a whole lot to me and that I hope will mean a whole lot to a lot of other people one day. So anyway, head on over there. Help us out on Patreon if you can. Yeah, I guess that's it. Let's get on with the show now.
Welcome to the Technobabble podcast. Enjoy.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Technobabble podcast. I'm Kirk, and today I'm here with AJ, the creator of a new single-player game called Hostage Negotiator. From what I understand, this is a pretty cool game. It looks like you're a hostage negotiator who's trying to basically convince someone not to kill a bunch of other people. Am I on the right track there, AJ?
That's about it. Thanks for having me on the show, first off. And
yeah, no problem. Hey, thanks for being online, man. Thanks for coming on, man. So you guys are doing a Kickstarter for this project. Just before we get into exactly what it is. Now, you guys are the Kickstarter's already funded. It's been backed, right?
Yeah, the Kickstarter was actually last year, and so we're actually getting really close to the official release of the product. So the production's done. It's on the way over from the Far East, and once it gets here, we'll get all the copies out to the backers, and then it'll be available through other channels, retail and such.
Right. So
if anyone is interested, they can pre-order the game through our website, rydergames.com, or the Kickstarter. If they go to the Kickstarter, it has a link to the page as well.
Right. So like you said, the game is already being it's being shipped, it's being put together. You guys should have it pretty soon to get it to your backers and all that. But like you mentioned, there is a way for people who are interested to still get a hold of the game. Is it going to be like a limited time thing, or is it going to be something you're going to try to keep out there for as long as possible?
No, I definitely plan to support it going forward. The pre-order is obviously going to be limited time because once it's released, then obviously people can just order it. But the advantage to pre-ordering is I'll ship the pre-orders just right after the Kickstarter, which is basically the same time. But we will ship the backers games first. But we're talking within a matter of days, the pre-orders will go out as well. Otherwise, folks who order through normal channels or game stores, they'll start showing up there. Probably a couple weeks or so after that.
Right. Okay, so the first thing, before we get exactly too deep into talking about exactly what the game is, I know people are pretty curious, but first of all, I just want to kind of get to know you a little bit, AJ. Like, what's your background, Did you come from game design or art design, or is this something like that you just had in your head one day and said, hey, I want to make this happen, or how, what got all this started for Hostage Negotiator?
I wish I came from art design. I'll say that up front. I unfortunately do not have, very good art skills, so I end up working with some great people that do. But no, so I actually got into the industry, I guess 4 or 5 years now. I've always had liked games growing up, and I kind of got
now,
out
did
of
you
them for a little bit.
were you more of like a computer PC gamer, a console gamer, or were board games / card games kind of all, tabletop games rather, kind of always your big thing? Is that, or were you just, or were you kind of just if it's a game, I'll play it?
Yes. So yeah, I grew up playing video games. I grew up playing D&D. I played Magic. I played Hero Quest, board games, and then other things, around college years and things. I've always gamed, but it became less part of my life during that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then, started a family and got married and all that good stuff. So that, sort of took a front seat,
of course,
as far as my life goes. And then, several years ago, I just, to be honest, I saw, I'm always really into zombies, but I was really into zombies at the time, still am. But Last Night on Earth is a board game that I just found. I may have been searching games for board games for zombies.
That's kind of an older game, isn't it? I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, I think it's post 2000, so I don't think it's like super old, but yeah, it's been out for a few years, and I was just so intrigued by that, and I was like, man, this is cool. I wanna try this out. And
making a board game?
Well, no, I just wanted to play that one. So,
okay.
But that's what leads to it, right? So I got it for Christmas, and my wife's family was in town, and I couldn't get anyone to play with me, so I was like frustrated. And so I had the thought in my mind, well, if this game could just play solo, then I could just play it by myself. I don't need anyone else. And so that's kind of what started me on the design journey, because I had in my head to design a solitaire zombie game, which I did do. And the first product for my publishing company, Ryder Games, is called If I'm Going Down, and it's a zombie game. It actually could be played with 2 players, but the original design was specifically for 1. And so that's kind of what got me into design. And then I was trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I get this to people? Do I want to be a designer and submit to publishers, or do I want to do it myself? And that's kind of right around when Kickstarter kind of was cropping up as an option.
Right.
And so I kind of went that route. So, I have a business degree, and I felt like I could handle the work needed to.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you. You got a BA in business, or what was your degree in? If you don't
I got an MBA, so I got my master's in business. Not long before all this kind of started up, so it was kind of good timing to launch something. So yeah, I mean.
Well, how do you think that business degree? Because I think people who think about making games, whether they're virtual like computer games or tabletop games, I think at least these days a lot of kids or a lot of young adults are thinking, well, I got to go to the college for game design, or I got to learn how to program and things like that. So obviously, like you mentioned, your MBA in business kind of helped you out. What about the business degree do you think lend the most support in creating this project?
Oh man, so publishing is it's so challenging. There's just so many things you have to handle, and the business degree and the education has certainly been a huge help with that. I mean,
right?
Because business skills, I mean, whether you're publishing games, whether you're running a retail location, I don't want to say it's all the same, but the core kind of skills needed to be able to run a business and operate a business.
It's more than just making the game and marketing it, right?
Oh my gosh, I was just thinking about tonight. I was like, if I ever get out of this publishing thing, I'm going to convince people that are thinking about getting into publishing not to do it, especially designers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's and maybe this is just my opinion tonight, just because some things, there's been some things come up today, but it's just so much work. And sometimes I'm like, man, I wish, I have so much less time for design now. And actually, besides Hostage Negotiator, I don't have plans to publish any more of my own designs, at least not in the near future.
Right.
Just because publishing so much work, and I still hold a day job, so
right.
Full-time job that pays the bills.
It's hard to find the time to do everything you want to do, especially when you have a family and a job, right?
Exactly. So I mean, it's very time consuming. It's so much more work than you might think on the surface. I mean, coordinating, working with manufacturers, and you're working with fulfillment companies, and I mean all this extra stuff, marketing, and you basically wear all the hats, right? And most small game publishers is one person, maybe a couple, and you're juggling all these different things. So it's maybe I should say I don't want to convince people not to, but just to make sure they understand what they're getting.
Right. Be aware of what you're getting into if you're a small publisher.
Yeah.
It's always good to have extra hands, of course. But I mean, you gotta say though, obviously, and I'm sure there are people going through the same thing or in the middle of that process who are in the middle of creating this idea, be it a game or a piece of art, whatever it may be for them, something that requires a lot of attention and a lot of hard work and is almost in itself a whole second job. You go through those struggles, and you have. I'm sure you probably had people along the way, didn't you, that told you, like, dude, this is a bad idea. Well, try it this way, or do it differently, or that's not going to work. I'm sure you had people like that throughout the process, right?
Yeah, I think actually you don't have. Well, when I started, there wasn't a lot of that. I think there was so much excitement around Kickstarter. It's like, hey, you could, put your game out there, you get all the money you need, piece of cake. But what no one was saying is, hey, it doesn't stop when you get the money. Like,
right.
you have to contact manufacturers. You need to be able to coordinate artists. You need to be able to work with designers, make sure the game is good, get testing it. I mean, all these things. I mean, getting the money,
That's only the start.
That's just the beginning, exactly. And that's, if you're fortunate enough to do that. And secondly, did you even project and factor in everything you needed and made sure you got the right amount of money?
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot more than just, raise $10,000 on Kickstarter and you have a game like magic.
Right. Well, I mean, and even raising money on Kickstarter without the right kind of, I guess, I don't know what the right word is, but with the right tools, I don't know if that's the right word, but without the right something, even raising money on a crowdfunding website such as Kickstarter can be a pain in the ass even, and it takes a lot of time just to make people aware of your project and to be enthused about it. To even give you the money, but I know once you get the money, once you got that money, you were super excited, and it probably almost felt surreal to you, like, oh my God, this is going to become a thing now, and that had to be at least some sort of gratification,
Oh yeah, so Hostage Negotiator was our third successful Kickstarter, so it's exactly what you're saying is true. I mean, that exhilarating feeling of when you get funded never goes away. Like, it's not like after the first one you're like, oh, been there, done that. It's just, it's an overwhelming feeling of support of how many people believe in what you're trying to do. And it may be cliche, but it's true. Like, it's humbling to know that so many people are behind what you're trying to do.
Right. Well, okay. To Hostage Negotiator, when I sometimes, because, well, first of all, and I feel like I say this every episode, but hell, I'll say it again. The reason I do this podcast is because it started out back in the day. Me and my friend said, let's do a podcast. Everyone's doing it. Let's just do it for fun. And we started talking about game development, game design, computer programming, things that we were kind of into. And we did that for a while, and then my buddy that was doing it with me, life kind of got in the way, and I had to start looking other places. I'm like, well, I don't really want to stop doing this. So then I reached out to just different developers and people like yourself, who were kind of independent developers who had made something happen, that had a story to tell. And so I talked with one of those guys, and I'm like, well, first of all, I asked them if they wanted to, to do it, and they said yes. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy said yes. Okay. So when, and after I'd done that, like, I felt so good, not only because, for one, like, I got to talk to this person and learn their story firsthand and get to kind of, know them at least a little bit, but I felt like when I, released that episode and when people listened to it, to me, it's about inspiring others to like, look, if you have an idea, don't just sit around on it, make it happen. Because, in my opinion, there's no such thing as failure. The only kind of failure is not trying. And it's really cool for me to be able to sit down with people who had an idea and it actually came to fruition. And I hope that by talking to those people, not only do we get to learn a little bit about the process that they went through, but also it's inspirational too, and will help motivate other people. So that's kind of the reason I do what I do. But
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, well,
I mean, podcasts. I love podcasts. I love going on podcasts, and I'll talk to anyone who wants to talk. And without you and other podcasters like you, let's face it, that's the primary source of information in the gaming industry. Definitely in the board gaming industry, and I'm sure it's similar in computer and video games. But yeah. Well, it's a huge thing.
I feel like podcasting and just the internet in general, you got things like Twitch TV and Reddit and Twitter and all these other YouTube, all these other social media websites where it's so easy these days for people to create content and put it up. And who knows, some of these people actually are able to make a living off of it. And just the fact that it's not, you don't have to have investors. I mean, I guess you do in some way have investors, at least some people do. You've got cool programs like Patreon and Kickstarter and things like that. But as far as like the big money investors where you have to go out and ask for hundreds of thousands of dollars, the kind of shit that people like me and you just don't have, the backbone or the ground to stand on to get that kind of funding. You can do it yourself, believe it or not, and that's the really cool thing. And I think the internet is the way of the future. I think internet and TV are going to merge real soon, and I think we're on the brink of seeing something really cool in the future. And I'm excited to be a part of that. And I know the independent game developers it's a great outlet for those guys like you.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing kind of time we live in right now, right? Because it's really all about connectivity, right? Like, through the internet, everyone is literally, powering on a device away from each other. So instead of, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when you had to waltz in a bank and present your business case to, 3 guys to try to get a loan, now we can put it out there for everyone to see, and we don't need that. We can go straight to the consumer and let them decide.
Exactly, and the people you're going to are usually, hopefully, those are the people who care more about what you are doing than the bank investors in the first place, because the bank investors are more interested in, and from my experience and what I've seen, they're more interested in how it's going to profit themselves. When your supporters, like your Kickstarter supporters or your Patreon supporters or anybody who gives you money, really, they're doing that because they care about the product you make, and that, to me at least, that's such, like, I can't thank those kind of people enough. And if you're listening to this and you like that kind of thing, I'd check out Kickstarter, check out Patreon. There are people out there who need your support, and the people who really care are the people that I think support the most.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're getting something back, right? I mean, well, usually, as long as there's not a project that fails, which it does happen, but most of the time you're getting what the reward you back for, and that's a cool thing, holding something in your hands that you can say that you helped create, and honestly might not exist without your the support that you lended. So yeah, it's awesome. It's a great thing.
Right. Now, the one thing that interests me about Hostage Negotiator, besides the title, which I think like that's, I used to play a game back at late 90s, early 2000s. Well, it's a derivative of the old game Police Quest. I don't know if you've ever played it.
Yeah, great game.
But they eventually released a game called SWAT. I think it was released by the same people. And SWAT was kind of like, you control a SWAT team and you go in and you rescue hostages and things like that. And so that game, like I've been looking for a game similar to that for a very long time, and I hadn't really found anything that interests me. But when I saw Hostage Negotiator, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a kind of game I could play. And then when I read about it, I'm like, the thing about games these days is like there's a lot of really fun games out there, especially like we were talking about with independent games, like tabletop games or otherwise. Steam offers so many cool games and they back so many games, but a lot of these games are really, honestly, in my opinion, they're more fun multiplayer, though, just the way the games are designed. So when I read that Hostage Negotiator was a solitaire game you could play it with one player, I'm like, that's pretty cool, because what if someone like me who doesn't have very many friends wants to play a cool game? At least now I can kill some time and have fun by myself. So I thought that was really cool. So you mentioned that you were in the kind of a situation where you didn't really have anyone to play a cool game with, but so that I guess that's what inspired you to do it solitaire. But you originally said you did a zombie game. What made you decide to transition into hostage, like a hostage negotiation type game? Where was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, so this is not that long after the first game was released. I had multiple game ideas, and I was thinking, and I have a kind of a soft spot for solitaire gaming, and to be frank, I wasn't sure how a solitaire game would do on Kickstarter, so I was pleasantly surprised with the results. But the solo game community has grown so much; it's really awesome, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. I was kind of sitting around brainstorming, and I'm my label is all about thematic games and games that kind of tell a story. And so I was like, what's something that's a very dramatic situation that hasn't been done or has not been done, with any magnitude. And I was just thinking, about different movies and different situations. And I was like, man, something that's really tense is like in a movie when there's this dialogue back and forth between the hostage taker, someone who's taking hostages, and whoever the other guy on the end of on the phone is, talking to them, trying to influence them and use different
the movie
tactics.
Payphone comes to mind when you bring that up.
There's so many. Payphone's one. The Die Hard movies even have some hostage negotiating things in them.
Right, for sure.
There's just so many, and that's so interesting and makes for like really tense situations. So I was like, man, that's cool. And then it's perfect for solitaire because I don't know many people that would be very comfortable playing the role of a hostage taker in a game. That just kind of seems like a little over the line, right?
Right.
But from a solitaire perspective, I was like, well, no one is playing. If I make the AI, control the hostage taker or the abductor, as we call them, then no one has to feel icky, right, for playing this guy that's taking people's lives into their hands. So yeah, that's how it kind of came
they're
about.
Instantly the villain, exactly.
Yeah, and God forbid, someone's actually been in some sort of situation like that. I don't think I could live with myself to, put them in that position in a game unknowingly. So, it never will, there's been some people who are like, why don't you make it 2-player and, make it, where one person controls the hostage taker. And I just draw the line there. I'm like, I realize that may be interesting for some people, but that's something I take the subject matter very seriously.
Right.
And want to be sensitive to that.
Of course, yeah, for sure. Now I do agree that there could be it could be interesting to see a two-player game like this, but I mean I understand. That's probably for a different developer, a different game altogether, and maybe for another time. But Hostage Negotiator, though, so for those of you who aren't familiar with the game, would you mind like give us like what's the object of the game? You don't have to go through all the phases or the rules or anything, but maybe give us a scenario or something so we can kind of get it in our heads what we're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. So if it's unclear to folks, it's a tabletop game, right? So you're playing. There's dice in the game and cards in the game, and
that's a winner in my book already. Dice and cards.
And you're basically, the game is kind of like what we already talked about. It revolves around the conversations between you, the hostage negotiator, and some abductor who's taken hostages. So, for example, there's a abductor in the main game, and she's a teacher, and she got passed over for tenure. So she's angry, and she's decided she's going to take, some of her students hostages until she gets what she wants. So throughout the game, your end goal is to save the hostages and either capture or eliminate the abductor. And the way the game works is you have a hand of cards, and you're having this dialogue. The cards represent things you are saying to the abductor. So one card, for example, says "keep cool," right? So you're trying to keep the abductor cool. Don't go fly off the handle, because that could lead to losing your temper and killing some hostages. And so there's this threat level that you have to kind of manage, but also you need to gather what we call conversation points. So that's kind of like your conversational equity, your rapport with the abductor. That's what lets you buy more cards. So that's a very high level of what kind of a round looks like. And then there's going to be a terror phase where the abductor, something's going to happen between calls, right? Because you're going to hang up, and he's going to go off and do who knows what. So you'll resolve a terror card, and that can, maybe it raises a threat, maybe they kill a hostage, whatever the case may be. But to win the game, you essentially have to save at least half the hostages and capture or eliminate the abductor. And it plays, it's 10 or 11 rounds max, and plays, once you have the game down, 20 minutes probably is a long game at that point.
Oh yeah.
So it plays really quick. It's very engaging and very thematic.
Yeah, that actually is pretty cool, because I mean, if you're playing a solitaire game, you're probably doing it to kill some time or in between, waiting on something here and there, and so a 20-minute game, at least to me, that sounds like a pretty. It's just long enough to kind of get you into it, but not long enough to kind of take up a whole lot of your time.
Yeah, I think, for hardcore solitaire gamers, they'll get out something big, no problem. But I think the barriers for most people, and why I'm also calling this kind of a gateway to solitaire, is because the two biggest barriers in my eyes are setup time and total gameplay time, both of which Hostage Negotiator is very short. So it's very accessible. So I think a lot of people haven't tried solitaire before. If they give Hostage Negotiator a shot, will be really pleasantly surprised. Like, wow, this is great. And
this is nothing like solitaire that comes on my computer. This is completely different.
Yeah, this is like, you might blow someone's mind if they're like heavy into solitaire, and you put this on the table and show them, wow, there's so much more to this. I
imagine it could become pretty addicting too. This is
definitely one where you want to play again right after, and you will, because it's short, right? Like, that happened all the time in play testing, and it's not an easy game, so you're probably losing, at least initially, more than you're winning. But the game has an amazing way of nearly always coming down to the wire. So you'll be like, oh man, I was so close, and you try again right after.
Well, so that actually leads to a question I was going to ask. Is it a game that revolves mostly around skill or mostly around luck, or is it kind of a nice blend of both, or what do you think? How does that work? Like, could you win based purely on skill, or is it, oh fuck man, that dice roll got me, I'm not going to be able, that kind of screwed me.
So yeah, no, that's a good question. So it definitely there is definitely a luck aspect, but I think that there's a pretty strong strategy component. So usually I say, hey, a good win rate in the game is 50 to 60%. If you're hitting that, you're doing, one of my lead playtester, he's, I think, in the low 60s range. So, I would consider him probably the best player, probably, better than me even, but, actually I'm probably not even that good at all. But there are dice, right? And you resolve the cards with dice. So there may be times where, the luck's going to get you and you just don't roll well and nothing you can do. But I think what people will discover is the proper planning and also wise tactical decisions that they definitely have an impact over the result. And there's some things you can, in the game, I won't go into the mechanics, but that can mitigate the dice rolls. And, even choosing when you resolve cards and roll the dice also is a big thing. So it's a good blend is how I'd answer that. I guess the short version. But it's definitely not just like a, no decision, the game plays itself kind of thing, nor is it a pure strategy. Once I figure out the game, I've broken it and can always beat it.
Yeah, well, and that's always good. I think, and there's no, this conversation's been had among gamers and game critics over and over again about balancing a game. And if you ask me, I don't, well, I think there is a such thing as perfect balance, but I think games that are perfectly balanced are really kind of stupid because I think you need to have some sort of disbalance because that way when you're play testing it, or even not play testing it, but exposing it, and when people are playing it, they want to find ways like, okay, well, for example, I play StarCraft a lot, and there's a lot of, I don't know if you've ever played StarCraft, but there's a lot of there's a lot of issues where, like, oh man, Zerg's overpowered or whatever, that's broken, Blizzard needs to fix that. But in my opinion, like with things like that, it's like I don't think it's necessarily broken. I think there's a way to beat it. You just got to figure it out, And so I think a little bit of imbalance is actually good for a game.
Yeah, and particularly in solitaire gaming, because what happens a lot of times in multiplayer gaming is the players actually are the balancing force, right? Because if someone's winning, right, what's going to happen? People are going to start going after that person. There's almost like a natural balancing force. You don't have that in solitaire gaming. So if you don't have random elements in a solitaire game, essentially you're basically going to have a puzzle. And once someone figures out how to put the puzzle together, then there's no reason they can't repeat that same process if there's no random elements. So I don't think there's a lot of perfect information games that are going to be entertaining solitaire games, but that's me. Like, different people have different tastes, so and puzzles are fun. So yeah, that's one thing, but that's not what I was going for. I was going for something you can play the same hostage taker multiple times and get a different experience each time.
Yeah, the replayability factor. Yeah, that's important, I think, especially in a solitaire game, because you don't want it to get old too fast, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Going back to the dice rolling real quick and stuff, and how it kind of gets down to the nitty gritty, you said, to the kind of the last moves, the last plays. I think that's pretty cool because to me, I've never been in a situation where I've had to negotiate with a hostage, and Lord, I really hope that never happens because I don't know if I could do that, but it would be fun to emulate that in a game. And the thing is, so I was curious, like, did you get any like kind of outside opinion or anything like that from any, I don't know, law enforcement or people like that, or was this kind of something you kind of researched on your own and said this is kind of what I think it would be like and do that just out of curiosity?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So yeah, I did a lot of research, just kind of on my own, trying to understand, hey, what does this look like? Will this even make for a good game initially? And got all the facts kind of through my own research. Through pretty early and mid-level playtesting, I actually was contacted by a sort of a hostage negotiator trainer.
Cool.
And I actually sent them prototype copies. They were going to a conference, and which is that was super exciting because they were considering it like, is this something we can use for training? And I was just like blown away, like very humbled and like almost kind of
like surreal.
Yeah, like caveating, like, hey, this is a game, it's not meant to necessarily be for training, but hey, if there's some way you guys can use it and get something out of it, like I'm honored to do that. So I sent them games, and it ended up not really hearing much back from I'm pretty sure it was a woman, but I never talked to her, met except through emails. But nothing came out of it, and that was fine. I was okay with that.
But at least somebody noticed it and said that, hey, there's something here,
Yeah. And then fast forward to the Kickstarter, so I actually had multiple backers kind of come out to me and say, hey, I am an actual hostage negotiator, and this looks really great. And one of the ones in particular, named Tony, was just like, wow, you did such a great job kind of sticking to the source material, and I feel like you really put the time in to understand how this works, and just very complimentary, and more than I would ever expect. And so that obviously made me feel really good. And then there was several backers that were hostage negotiators, which I was like, that's kind of the ultimate validation. That's awesome.
Yeah, that really kind of puts a stamp of approval on it, right?
Yeah. So, and then, I was able to be in touch with these guys and pick their brains, and, that guy Tony actually sent me some trade magazines, for they don't just it's not just like just hostage situations. They do actually like crisis management. So like, anything from actual hostage situation to, someone is suicidal, anything where you have to talk to someone and negotiate them to not hurt other people or themselves. So, that was just fascinating. And the fact that he was kind enough to send me that, I was just really blown away, and it was extremely helpful. And I'm planning, there's already going to be 2 abductor packs, which will expand the game, but I'm planning to kind of release, new abductor packs as long as there's demand for the game, and those journals really gave me some great ideas to do some other things.
No, yeah, dude, I was actually just about to ask, do you plan on doing any sort of expansions or anything like that? So that's really cool, and I definitely, I'm looking forward to it. I'd like to somehow to get a copy of it. Yeah, I'll buy it. I don't care. I just want to play it.
Yeah, man.
But so just out of curiosity, for those who may want to buy it or pre-order it, what's the cost, like U.S. dollars or EU or what currency, I guess, or I guess it doesn't matter, I guess, but what's the cost of the game?
So the retail price for Hostage Negotiator, the base game, is $25. And that can be pre-ordered through our website. It's actually showing up on also some online game sites as well. And the price varies, but you can actually get below retail if you do that, and as long as you're willing to just wait maybe a little longer. But that's another option. And then the abductor packs can be the first 2 can be pre-ordered. There's 4 set, and there's 4 currently planned, I should say. So 2 more are in testing now, and hopefully it'll be out by the end of the year. But then I want to take it even beyond that and keep it going. And then I guess I'll kind of tease something I've been thinking about. I haven't mentioned to anyone else, so you kind of get the exclusive, and it's nothing official, so it's just an idea at this point. But
right, of course,
I kind of want to do I'd really love to do a spinoff that takes sort of more what you were talking about with the SWAT and the team actually that goes in
Right.
and extracts.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of in my head since this seems to be like a successful kind of brand as maybe something to do also. That's probably a little more down the road, but I'm keen to try something on that.
Dude, I think you should definitely pursue that because I mean, with the success of this game, and I know there's, like you said, it was successfully backed. You've got so much interest, not even just from fans, but from hostage negotiators themselves, people who actually do this for a living. So like if you ask me, I say go for it, but well, mainly that's me being selfish because I want to play it. But
yeah, I too.
Going back to Hostage Negotiator though, real quick. This is. I guess I think we've made it clear, but I just want to make sure. It's a tabletop. It's a physical game. Like the box set will be mailed out. That's correct, right? And what do you get with that?
So it comes in like a 5x7 box, about an inch deep. So it's pretty portable. It's not super small, but it's not overly large either. So that's handy, right? Because you can take it around if you want. But it comes with I don't have the contents with me, but I'm pretty sure it's like 64 cards, 5 dice. There's a board, a small board, the size of that box, a 5x7 board. It comes with 15 little hostage meeples, so they're little wooden guys representing
little cubes,
the hostages.
right?
Well, it's actually little, like, call them meeples because they're like mini people basically.
Right.
And then there's a conversation marker, which is like in the shape of a conversation bubble. That's how you track the conversation points. And then there's a red meeple for the hostage taker tracking their threat level. So it's got packs a lot of punch for pretty trim amount of components. It's crazy. I always tell people, even now, I mean, I've played the game so many times, but you feel like there's, people hear 64 cards and they're like, that's not that many cards. But man, I'm telling you, when you play the game, it feels like there's so many more cards than that in the game. I'm always like, just the variety of what I get from game to game, even still for me is new. I don't ever feel like I played the same game. So, like I said, the abductor packs are going to expand on that. So the abductor packs basically are following a formula of 15 new cards, and it's not just cards that follow, they obviously fit in the system, but each of the abductor packs will add something new. So for example, the first abductor pack is the abductor is a CEO guy, and the stock's plummeted, everything's falling apart, and he took the board hostage. Well, in that one, you actually have some way of communicating with one of the hostages. So there's these internal influence cards. So you have someone on the inside feeding you information about what's going on with the abductor while you're not necessarily talking to him. And then that basically, is this whole situation where if they get caught communicating with you, obviously the hostage taker is not going to look favorably upon that, and you're going to lose access to that sort of information. So that's just one example. The second pack does something totally different, and then the third and fourth, each one is basically going to refresh the game. So even if you played it hundreds of times, like me, it's going to keep bringing something fresh.
Okay, so I gotta ask, because I know there are people out there thinking this. Do you have plans to port this out to? I know Steam has this really awesome thing they've released lately called Tabletop Simulator, where you can create things or board games to be played virtually with other people around the world, or maybe even convert it to some sort of mobile app or any sort of portable game. Do you plan to port it to anything electronic, like a computer game or a mobile game or some sort like that? Is that in the cards or maybe not?
Well, I guess how I'd respond to that is I'm open to it. I had a sort of a head fake on an app. We got to where we were kind of negotiating contract and terms, and unfortunately didn't make it through that process. We just, mutually decided, both of us decided maybe it wasn't going to work. But I'm completely open, especially to app development, and I think this game is the perfect game for a board game app. So it's just a matter of making the right connection, getting the right deal done. I hope to do that. So if we can make that happen, I'm more than happy to pursue that.
Right. So if there's anybody out there listening to this, or knows somebody that knows somebody who might could help AJ out here, that would I think that would be really cool. Because again, like as cool as this game looks to be played, single player on a tabletop game, I think it would be really cool to also just kind of be able to carry it around on your iPad or your iPhone and be able to play it virtually, literally anytime, anywhere, and that would be cool as well.
Yeah, and you could do, not to get too far into it, but there's some cool things you could do, like have voiceovers and different things that you can't obviously have on a tabletop game. So yeah, like you said, if anyone's listening would be interested in something like that, helping out, because I certainly can't do it.
Right.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, hopefully, if I ever run if I ever run into anyone in the future who I'll be sure to mention this, and maybe I can't make any promises, of course, but I'll keep my eye out for you, man, for sure. The other thing this is a question I kind of always ask the game developers, because I think it's important. A lot of people come to, like, when they're developing something, or they're working on a project, or they have this idea, that there's always these bumps or these crossroads or things that get in the way, and a lot of times those kind of things can just kind of turn you off from a project altogether. And I'm sure you had those things. You maybe even mentioned a few of them before, but what do you think was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome to get this game out there?
Well, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but to be honest with you, it's the post Kickstarter stuff, and once it's in manufacturing's hands and you've submitted all the finals, basically everything is out of your control. It's a matter of how, them producing the game and getting it over to you. So with this particular game, that's been the most frustrating part, is how long that process has and is taking. It's just frustrating because you're so close to the finish line and you have so many eager people waiting and,
right,
wanting to play it. And all I can do is kind of just update them on the communications I'm getting and where it's at in the timeline. And that's, I think a lot of people would say, if there's one downfall is Kickstarter, or not downfall, but frustrating point, it's how long you have to wait from once you back to when you get the product. So I try to keep that process going as fast as possible. And I do that. Once, our last game, once I got the games in my possession, I had them out to all the backers within like 3 days. So I don't waste any time because I know people are ready and they want it, and that's how I would be. But as far as, sea freight over from China and customs and all that stuff can take a while. So sure. That's my biggest frustration.
Oh, I got a couple of stories that kind of relate to that. First of all, I'm kind of an independent music composer myself, composer and arranger, and I arranged this piece of music that I had submitted to a publisher, and it was feels like 2 years ago now, maybe not quite that long, year and a half, but I sent it to him. I had to wait like 6 months before I even heard back if they were interested in publishing it or not. And they said, oh, hey, we like what you sent us. We're going to send it through to the next round. Okay, great, awesome. Like, it's going to the next round. That's got to be good news. So a couple months later, they call me back and say, all right, cool. We got this orchestra here from this university that they're interested in recording it for us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible when we want you to send us the full score and all the parts. And And I'm still waiting on that. I've almost even given up hope. But so it can be when you're waiting on someone else to do your publishing. It's like nail biting. You know what I mean? I definitely feel you on that. And the other point I was going to make is I absolutely forgot. So we'll move on from that. So yeah, like it looks like a really fun game. I'm excited to look more into it and to be able to play it. And you look like you've done a lot of work. Who did the art for you, by the way? You said obviously you didn't have a whole lot of art skills. Did you have a team to help you out with that, or with some friends, or who did that? I think we should probably give them some credit.
Yeah, definitely. So primary artist for the base game I worked with, her name is Christy Kiersberg Harmon, and she is, where is she? So our relationship, we worked entirely over the computer, once again, connectivity. But she is, I want to say, I'm going to be wrong, but I think it's like Nevada or Utah. She's somewhere out there. She's a artistic professional, and the story she did on the game is fantastic. She did both the illustration and graphic design for all the cards in the box.
And the game looks beautiful, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. It really does.
Oh, thanks. Great. Yeah, no, I think the way it turned out is perfect. Really excited. And then, actually, for starting with the first Abductor pack, although that's both kind of some of Christie's work and some of the second artist's name is Vanessa Kelly, who, how I got hooked up with her is our next game, which actually is going to be coming to Kickstarter probably within the next month. She's the artist for that game, and Christy got busy with some other things, and I needed to keep going with the Abductor packs, and so Vanessa was graciously willing to kind of jump in there. So far it's been those two artists. You never know with future Abductor packs, there could be more.
Right.
But both of them, and just their work's been phenomenal, and I'm thrilled to have them on the project.
Yeah, man, and that sounds cool. Like I said, we were talking about earlier, networking is such a huge thing, and even if you're the kind of guy who has this idea in their head to create a game, whether it's a tabletop game or anything, take it from AJ here, man. Like, he didn't come from an art background. He just had an idea in his head, man. And he looked out, he searched for the people, and more importantly, dude, you didn't give up, and you created this project, and now it's in the process of being published and being released, and you're gonna reap the benefits from that, and it's yours, man. Like, no one can take it away from you. Like, no matter what, if you do nothing else, you'll always have this, and that's something cool. At least, I think it is. Yeah,
no, you're right, and it's a huge point you just made on basically persistence and resolve, because there's so many people that start a game project and they start it and they, some may not get very far, some may get midway through, but they never ultimately take it over the finish line. And there's times where it's not all fun and games, it's not easy, but if you persevere and you persist, then you can make it happen. It's really is all within your control. You just have to stick with it and see it through.
Right. Like, and I think I said this earlier, and I can't say it enough. I feel like I say this all the time now. If people are always, asking me for advice for some fucking reason, like I know everything. I don't know, but the thing I always try to say is, like, look, man, failure is simply not trying. There's no such thing as failure. The only type of failure is not trying. So as long as you're trying and you're doing your best, eventually, longevity is the key. Is if you keep at something long enough, I believe at least you're going to get rewarded in some way in the long run.
Yep. I agree.
And yeah, so with that being said, I think we're wrapping up on our time. I know it's getting kind of late. I don't want to keep you up too much longer. So, dude, it's been a pleasure having you. I loved seeing the game. I love talking about the game. I'm going to promote it as much as I can, and hopefully I'll get to play it pretty soon. And I'm looking forward to your other projects as well too. But before we get to going, do you have any shout-outs? You want to throw out your Twitter, your website? If there's anything like maybe we didn't talk about, people are wanting to know more about the game, how can they get a hold of you or learn more about the game?
Yeah. So I would like to just quickly mention our next project, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Sure. Yeah. Whatever.
So, with Vanessa, the artist, and then actually her husband's the designer, and then their friends. So there's 2 co-designers, and the game's called Salvation Road, and it's basically based in a post-apocalyptic world, sort of. It's very much inspired by Mad Max, if you've seen any of those movies, or at least heard
I
of it.
haven't seen any of them, but I've heard of it.
And the new one's coming out. It's called Fury Road soon. So we're actually planning on a Kickstarter launch. I don't have the exact date yet, but probably within the first couple weeks of May. And so Salvation Road, you're in this sort of post-apocalyptic, I can't say that word, apocalyptic world. And you basically are holed up in this compound, this group of people, and there's all these marauders out. Oil's become kind of the most prized possession, but you also need food, you need med kits, and you need ammo, right? Those are the 4 key resources in the game. And it's a cooperative game where the players are trying to go out into this small town to gather up these resources to make the journey to this kind of city that they've heard about called Salvation, which is, sort of a up and coming in the new world, city, safe from marauders, safe from the dangers of the wasteland. So, like I said, I'm into publishing very thematic games. So this one's going to tell a story of trial and tribulation, and has some very unique aspects to it. So I'm not gonna go on any longer, but make sure you guys check out that Kickstarter here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, dude. When you get that Kickstarter up and going, be sure to tweet it over to me, and I will definitely make sure I get it out to as many people as I can.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I will. And then you can find anything related to Van Ryder Games through our website, vanrydergames.com, and Ryder is with a Y, so it's RYDER. And I'm on Twitter at Van Ryder Games, no spaces. And I'm pretty active there and always looking to interact with folks. So please definitely send me a tweet or a message, and we'll have a chat. I'm on BoardGameGeek.com, which is kind of the main board game site. I'm on there often. I have Facebook for Van Ryder Games. It's not as active, maybe as a Twitter, but you can find it. And I think that's it. Yeah, definitely love to chat with anyone interested in our games, and I really appreciate, Kirk, you having me on tonight to talk a bit.
No, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. I was actually really happy that you agreed to come on, because I saw that game, and for one, like, just the art alone and the name, I was like, oh, that looks like so fucking awesome. I want this guy to talk to me about it, because I want to learn more. Okay, but no, seriously, AJ, I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking. It means a lot to me. And I hope we've inspired some people, and we've educated people, and people are now more interested in this. And because I know I'm going to be checking it out, and I highly encourage you guys to visit AJ's website and his Twitter, and follow along, man. If you want to, like you said, you can already make some pre-orders, get this game. It's pretty on the cheap, right? $25, and you said the expansions those are going to be released separately, but I'm sure for a reasonable price, right?
Yeah, the expansion packs, they come in foil packs, kind of like if you know Magic the Gathering or any trading card games. And they're going to be $8.99 a pack, so you can
right. That's definitely reasonable. Okay, man, thanks for coming on so much. It's been an awesome time chatting with you, and until next time, guys. We release a new podcast every Tuesday, so check back next Tuesday for a new episode of the Technobabble podcast. Once again, AJ, thanks for coming on, man.
Yep, you're the best, man. Thanks.
Hey, thanks a lot.
This concludes the Technobabble podcast. If you would like to leave feedback, please send us an email to thetechnobabblepodcast@gmail.com, or feel free to reach out to us via Twitter at the Technobabble. Thanks for listening. See you next time.